for us to play is something that's part of our effort going forward. It's not easy. It's not easy.
One of my favorite expressions is that reality perception always lags reality, right? So there's still some people out there with the perception that the Chamber is not an entrepreneurial friendly organization or does not care about entrepreneurship. And I say that perception is lagging the reality of where they are today and what they are doing for us in our community. So selfishly for me, part of the reason to have Bob come speak here is I'm working really hard to help change that perception and get that perception caught up with the reality of what's happening here today. And I won't steal Bob's thunder by talking about the great things they're doing, but if you could, please, a warm round of applause and welcome to Bob Morgan, who's president of the Charlotte Chamber.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, first of all, let me say about Dan, and he just gave a great description of Packard Place, how wonderful it is to have this facility here, and how great it was that the week of the DNC, when so many other businesses said, we're going to get the hell out of town and avoid all of the hassle, I hope that many of you had a chance to be here because Packard Place was a key part of the story. Not just what was on display right here in the garage, but Politico having set up a studio and reception facilities, hospitality facilities up on the 5th floor. I mean, you could stand here and watch governors and senators and cabinet members in and out of this building talking about very important issues and doing the work of the convention, and it was part of the pulse that made Charlotte show so well during that unique week. So Dan, kudos to you all for what you've built here and what you meant in terms of that very important event for Charlotte. Now, most entrepreneurs by nature think of a Chamber of Commerce as something that their fathers and grandfathers were part of, right? And chambers historically in Charlotte and elsewhere have had a tough time relating to entrepreneurs, as Dan alluded to. Part of that is because for a number of years we talked about small businesses who are members of the Chamber. Part of the dynamic that we deal with, and perhaps maybe part of the reason we haven't been real good about this, 3,200 members, 85% are less than 100 employees. That sounds pretty compelling. Well, it is. And yet, if you look at, not all Chamber members are equal in terms of the investment they make in the organization. And you could flip those numbers around, and it's the 15% of the largest members who pay about 85% of the freight of funding the organization. And so has there been an orientation historically that's about recruiting the big companies, about focusing on banks and utilities and large manufacturing outfits with less of an appreciation for the entrepreneurial community? Guilty. Absolutely guilty. We're a membership-based nonprofit organization representing 3,300 companies who do business in the Charlotte market. We get no tax dollars at all. We will raise this year roughly $8.5 million. We have a staff of roughly 45 people. And we view our mission in 3 different ways. We exist to grow the economy, which is what we do in economic development and recruiting companies here from elsewhere. We're a voice for business, which is what we do in public policy and advocacy of a pro-Charlotte, pro-business agenda at every level of government. And we exist to engage our members as the front door of the business community, again, representing those 32 or 3,300 members. And we asked that question at the Entrepreneurial Summit, and we've asked it in other ways. And there are 2 parts of the answer. One is that they do a better job of linking the ecosystem, and there's a lot for us to learn from that, and we are. But secondly, what I heard loud and clear was, it's not that they have a lot of things different than us. It's that they talk about, care about, celebrate, and recognize the entrepreneurs amongst them. And that they do a much better job of Charlotte in doing that in Raleigh-Durham and in Austin and in Silicon Valley and elsewhere than we do in Charlotte. might say talk is cheap, and folks are just talking the talk, and perhaps there's some truth to that. I would argue to you that you have to talk first to be able to understand it. And part of that dialogue has been for us at the Chamber to acknowledge that there is a role for us to play, but that we are not the sole owners of this subject in this community. There are multiple owners, or as the book, The Coming Jobs War, would suggest, there are tribal leaders amongst us at some of those institutions that I mentioned earlier, in some of the entrepreneurs who are amongst us, all of whom have to have a seat at the table to make the ecosystem realize all of the potential that it has. More people join a Chamber of Commerce in Charlotte or Timbuktu or anywhere to network than for any other reason. Not everybody has that need, but more of our members have the need to network with other business people than any other need. If your business has an interest in Charlotte's growth, if as Charlotte's economic pie gets bigger, if that creates more opportunity for your business, then I would argue you need to help fund the Chamber, because your tax dollars don't fund that function. The Chamber of Commerce is the recruitment agency for the city of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, and we're out every day trying to help companies that are here to expand, trying to bring companies in from elsewhere. And so if you have an interest in that part of this community, then I would argue that there's value from the Chamber.
This is how we move forward as a community, through this kind of dialogue. We didn't solve all the answers today. We may not have solved any of the challenges today, but I think it helps us understand what those challenges are and lay out a plan to move forward. And for Bob to take the time and hear it directly from entrepreneurs is just critically important. As I said in the opening, there's a very sincere desire on the part of Bob, the leadership at the Chamber, members in the Chamber, to support and grow the entrepreneurial community. Really sincerely, thank you for doing that.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Good.